learned about rate of change and the slope-intercept formula, some in 8th grade. We use it a lot in Algebra 1, so we're going to start going over it today, kind of brushing up on those skills and making sure you remember what you'd learned last year. So we're going to start with the slope-intercept form of an equation. That's the y equals mx plus b. The m represents our slope, and the b represents our y-intercept. And then the other thing that sometimes I think students miss out on is the fact that there's x and a y. The x and the y in that formula represents the ordered pairs that are on the line. They're solutions to that equation. So when we're looking at rate of change or slope, slope is our rate of change. Other words that we use, we say rise over run. A lot of times you'll hear me say change in y over change in x. That means the change in our y value over the change in our x value. So that's what our slope is. Our y-intercept is where our line crosses the y-axis. Oftentimes, we just call it the beginning point. So when it's the b in the equation, it's the beginning point. We call it the beginning point. Sometimes we call it the initial amount. The word initial may be a little bit new to you or something you're not really sure of. It's just the beginning. If you think of the initials of your name, it's the first letter of your name. So initial means beginning or starting amount. So if we look at this graph, we can see that our y-intercept is right here. It's crossing the line at 1. So our y-intercept, if we say b equals 1, or if we write the ordered pair, we're going out 0 and up 1. If we look at this table that represents the same graph, all we have to do is look where our x value is 0 because we're not going anywhere on the x-axis, and that'll tell us what our y-intercept is. Okay, so on number 1, I want you to practice this one on your own, but let me give you a couple of things that you'll need to make sure you do so that you don't get stuck on it. And one of the things that you're going to need to make sure you do is when you're looking at the graph, you're going to have to figure out what your y values are going by so that you can write down what your y-intercept is. And you need to know what your x values are going by so you'll know what all the in-between numbers are. And then the last thing you'll have to do to get your rise over run is to draw your little right triangle so that you can figure out how much the rise is changing over how much the run is changing. So go ahead and complete all of number 1. Pause your video to do this, and then check back for the explanation. Okay, so just check your work. Make sure that you got that it was descending or going down, so it was a negative rate of change or a negative slope. Okay, so now let's look at number 2. And on number 2 and on number 3, we're using the slope formula that you worked with last year, which was just taking 2 data points and labeling them x and y1 and x and y2. And then you're just going to subtract your y2 minus y1. That's your formula right here. So your y2 minus y1 over your x2 minus x1 in order to get your slope. So the biggest thing you have to do is just pick 2 numbers. So I'm just going to pick that one and call that one x1, y1. And I'm going to pick another one, and I'm going to call that x2, y2. So y1 and y2. So once you've identified the 2 points you're going to use, it's just a matter of plugging it in. So go ahead and pause the video, plug it in, and then check back for your answer. Okay, the biggest thing on this one was just making sure you handled your minus and negative correctly, and your slope was 0. Okay, pause the video and do number 3, and then check back for the answer. Again, this one was very straightforward as long as you were able to properly account for the minus negative, and that's the biggest thing to be careful of. Okay, on number 4, now we're just putting it into a real life situation. So go ahead and pause your video and work through number 4 and then check back for your answer. So I just went ahead and identified my x1, y1, and x2, y2, my 2 data points, and put them in my slope formula and just interpreted it. It cost 99 cents for each song.